Hello, it is I, Dr. Brian Lorgon 111, and welcome back to Calamity Canyon. I'm back here at the beginning where it all began. There is a death counter, and I know that I can count on death by pressing the button.
Greetings, Brian. I'm here to bring some more death.
It's Render, the Mapmaker, and yeah, just like the last one, we wanted to do kind of an, I don't know, post-mortem after the fact. I wanted to ask you about the design of the map, and I know you just wanted to talk about some things, and so yeah, we're just going to do it kind of, I don't know, talky interview style and fly around the map and do all that cool stuff.
Yes, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for joining me again, and thank you for making the map. I was just reading the comments on, I think, one of my most recent videos, which at the time that we're recording this now, I think I only have like 2 episodes left or something, and so you've had an opportunity to see me play through the map. But one of the comments on the recent video was from someone else who just finished playing the map, and they said it was the best CTM map they'd ever played.
Oh yeah, I actually saw that one.
I see.
Yes.
So, good job. It really was a lot of fun. I was happy with the length of it overall, and the size, and lots of secrets to find, which is always fun, and some cool game mechanics, and I don't know, beautiful areas, some fun dungeons, all that stuff.
Yes, the length was something I was kind of hesitant about because it's not really a full wool map because it's
Right.
wool, but it's not the full 16
Right, it's only got
colors.
11, I think.
Yeah, it's only 11, and that's not even like all the records.
Right.
Because there are 12 records.
Right.
So I was kind of hesitant on calling it a full map, but I would definitely not call it a mini map.
Yes. And yeah, I feel like it's in that sweet spot in between, which is my personal favorite kind of length of map, just because I tend to get, I don't know, fatigued or maybe sometimes even a little bit, like bored or tired of other maps, typically when they're 16 wools and also have bonus objectives.
After a while, it gets kind of too much.
Yeah, and
Especially
then
with
I'm not...
CTM maps becoming bigger and grander
Right.
after so much time.
Yeah. Yeah, you go to things like Ragecraft 3 or whatever, and it might have been an awesome map, but I still didn't want to play it. Because it's like, who has 6 months to devote of their life?
Like I don't mind the map length that is really big with maps like that. I mind the area length, and that kind of ruins the pacing of all the areas.
I see, right. You can spend too many hours before you feel like you've made progress toward the final goal again.
Yes. Because I could have made the dungeons in this map way bigger, but I think they have also kind of a sweet spot. At least some of them. Some some are maybe a bit too small.
Yeah, there's a couple that are short, especially at the beginning. And yeah, I'm curious, like, do you know the dimensions of this map overall? It doesn't seem like it's very big. It seems like it's like under 2,000 by 2,000 or something, maybe.
Oh, it's definitely under 2,000 by 2,000. The whole canyon is about, I think, from east to west. It's 700 blocks roundabout, and it's 600 from north to south.
I see. And do the dungeons that are underground kind of also fit inside that boundary, or do they kind of like skirt out on the edge? I guess we'll be able to see some of it as we start flying around and spectator mode.
The Dread Alley, the second dungeon, goes way more south of the whole canyon. Okay. And of course the Palace of Ordeal and the
is kind of way over in the corner there.
Yeah, it's kind of an offshoot of the central canyon.
Right. Yeah, I was amazed because it doesn't seem like, just from the Minecraft and mapping point of view, like I was thinking that this was a relatively small area that it all fits into, but at the same time, like, I mean, I know I play slow, but I got 36 episodes out of this, and I was always surprised to find more and to find more, and so it still felt like a big map, despite the fact that it was all contained in an area. So I'm excited to see how bits and pieces of it fit together.
This map is really compact in terms of game design and secrets and chests and all these small points of interest you can visit. And that kind of makes it really, I guess, more content, because it's a lot of exploration and finding stuff. Even though the map is small, but it feels bigger.
Yes. Yeah, the open world also is just a style that I really enjoy, and I feel like you dialed this one in pretty well. I noticed something similar between this one and Sea of Cinders that I played, which is that it was kind of open world, but there was kind of a spiral progression where you kind of like go in a spiral and just kind of work your way out, and that kind of gets the dungeons in various areas and difficulty kind of in order.
Definitely. I think Molly is on the right track there as well. Is while still keeping an open world, still kind of hold the player throughout guiding through the map. Like you could just drop somebody in the wilderness and just go a direction. Oh, you just stumbled upon the second to last dungeon, which was basically my second map.
Right, that's what I was just about to say, and that's kind of how Big Leaf Forest went, which was Untold Stories #2, which I never played, but I watched, War play it.
Yeah, and that's probably why I probably don't like that map too much.
Yeah.
Because it's too open world. The world is also just too empty as well.
Yes.
In my opinion.
It was kind of empty, and yeah, definitely there was kind of no order to it at all, and so it was kind of random and haphazard.
I've been thinking of like revisiting a map like that, like making a new version of it. I would probably turn it into multiple islands that you would explore linearly, and then basically guide the player from island 1 to island 2, and there are like 4 dungeons on island 1, and then continue on.
Right. Speaking of linearity, it's kind of jumping ahead, but since it's the only place I can think of it in the map, you did have kind of the gate to enter Dungeon 9 that you had to explode the Ender Crystal down in the Arcanium in Dungeon 8, and so that was one of the only places that there was kind of an artificial kind of barrier to progress. And so
Yes.
I guess just while we're talking about it, what are your thoughts in terms of, that aspect of design, and why did you choose to do it that way?
I chose to do that because in Dragon's Exile there's like the mother lode of iron and diamond in there, and just giving access to the player like right away. Most people just take a peek and would take all this stuff and then take on all the other areas. Because I think Zisto did it as well with Legendary. He tried to get ahead of the map.
Yep.
And try to take it on that way, and I think you're good at doing.
Yeah, I tried to do it on this map, and for better or for worse, and it might have been for better. Like I ended up, I don't know, just failing to see some things or having some bad luck in a few different ways that prevented me from getting too much iron ahead of time, basically. And I've been watching, I don't know, like at least 5 other people play this map, and the number of secrets that I missed along the way is much higher than I thought. And so, yeah, I guess let's talk about that as well, because I think you and I had a little bit of a conversation about it before. I think maybe you were saying after you played Breath of the Wild, like you had an idea of kind of like secret density, and so let's talk about that.
That is definitely something I learned about Breath of the Wild, and it's basically when you have these huge open worlds and you want to fill it, you need to make it interesting in some way. You could do that by giving players like points of interest, but you could also do that by giving the players something to look out for, like secrets and like small things like those dead bushes right over there where you could find like iron.
Yep. And we
these
can go
are
ahead and head over
things
there.
Like these are things that if you give the player room to find those, it would make exploring much more interesting than just walking around and like, oh hey, there's this and there's this, and now you're actually also looking at the details as well.
Yes.
Instead of just looking at the big picture.
Right, and some of them are more obvious and some of them are subtle. I did see people, I think I did see at least one person who was like, oh, here's my opportunity to get a bunch of sticks, and took all the sticks and didn't think anything about it with the 3x3 square. And I think I probably went past it a time or two or whatever before I actually noticed it. And this one, I think, was kind of typical. It's near the beginning of the map, and so I think it just had a couple of iron. And then I think later on, as you spiraled out, it ended up kind of having more and more iron and a few different little secrets like that. But yeah, it's a good motivation to explore. And yeah, it just, I don't know. I like the exploration just kind of on its own, but when you find little bits of things like that, that makes it even more motivating to continue to explore. And I guess that
Mm.
also ties into, in this case, it's iron, but kind of like the resource limitations in terms of things like food and wood that were in this map that allows you to place more loot around the map and have it always be valuable.
Yeah. At first, this map was a jam map, and
Which
it
means you
was a
made it
free
over the
wave.
weekend, over 72 hours kind of thing.
Yeah, I actually this map is too big for that.
Right.
I made it in 3 weekends because you normally do it in waves. So I had the crazy idea of instead of doing one wave of 72 hours, I would make 9 dungeons over the course of those 3 weekends.
I see. Okay.
I ended up making 8, and then making an emerald block because I just didn't have enough time, especially when you have like a huge overworld as well.
Hmm.
And the secrets weren't really there, and that was really showing in that version. That just exploration was just kind of bland.
Hmm.
Uh,
And so when you did come back and work on the map some more and try to flesh it out and like add the secrets, do you have like I'm curious to know, do you have a list of all the secrets to know like how many hidden chests and things that there are? And do you have any kind of like, metric for, oh, it's been, 50 blocks away from the last secret. We should have another secret or something.
I kind of keep that in mind. Like, this area is kind of bland. There's nothing here. Let's just put something here. Like this small portion right over here. You have the chest over there,
Uh-huh.
and you have a cave over there, which wasn't there initially.
I see.
That came in really late. Those caves.
I see.
So I was thinking like there needs to be something here to find. And then also in the area around the monument, it used to be really, it still is kind of bland where there's nothing around.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good space for players to find something,
Mm-hmm.
because then it doesn't feel that bland anymore.
Yep.
And you can achieve secrets in like multiple ways. You can do the like something different in the terrain.
Right.
What you could also do is have a pattern the player could notice, and then break it somewhere so you could hide something right under here,
Right.
for
Okay.
instance. And there are quite a few ways in which you can hide things, and also in where you just give a general pattern throughout the whole map, like the X in what I used to do.
Right.
If you put an X somewhere, then players who've played it before or seen those before, they could instantly connect to it and know like, oh hey, that's a secret. If they notice it, of course.
Right. Okay.
And a lot of
Go ahead.
and a lot of it is of course like gut instinct as well. Like if you give like a really wide waterfall or lava fall, you would be like, oh hey, there's something behind it. Like that would just scream that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's good making secrets like kind of obvious, just to basically give it to the player at times.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, even with as kind of as obvious as a number of them were, like I still missed a number of things, and yeah, just the sheer number of them or whatever. Like on the one hand, I almost wish there were fewer because it kind of like goes against my completionist notion of wanting to find everything.
Very OCD.
But on the other hand, it just is constantly rewarding the exploration. If you want to fly up with me, one of the
sure.
big picture things before we start looking at any specific areas that I wanted to ask about is the clouds.
Oh yeah, these are generated with a Brightmore's
Mm-hmm.
filter. I think clouds version 3. Just search clouds free.
And how is it that
Right.
basically, obviously, some of it is just kind of random for the atmosphere and for adding a little light and dark, but then obviously there's darker patches over a number of kind of overworld dungeon areas. And so, how do you choose to do that? And then there's also at least one secret in the clouds that I know about as well.
There are actually quite a few secrets in the clouds.
I see.
But Oh wait, what's the question again?
Basically, like if there's a dark dungeon that you wanted to make dark, like
Oh
as
yeah,
part of the
some of these
filter,
are.
can you like specify an area to make it like denser clouds in this area, or?
So how the map is laid out, it's actually in one of the first lore books. That's the first thing. One of the first things I wanted players to notice is it was saying that monsters are spawning,
Right.
but only in the shade.
Right.
So these clouds are basically here to spawn shade
Right.
or spawn monsters. And most of these are hand placed as well, just to accommodate for putting monsters here and not there. Which was the problem with the original Jam version as well, where it was just completely dark, so monsters would be everywhere.
Oh,
And
wow.
it
Yeah, I
would
can
be
only imagine, especially at the beginning.
there would be, yeah, and there were no honeypots at all. So it was really chaotic, and this was a difficult map.
Interesting. Yeah. And so, yeah, it was still the case that, especially at the beginning, like just being hounded by zombies kind of constantly was something that happened when you're kind of overworld in the desert. And so definitely opening up a lot of the sky over here. I'm kind of headed over towards the monument because I know that that's where one of the cloud secrets is. Yeah, definitely helped, I have to imagine.
Yeah, if you look right above the monument, you can see that. Oh, I got an advancement. You could see that there are
Barrier blocks.
that there's basically this big hole as well.
Yeah, there's a big hole over the monument, so you don't spawn too many monsters there. There's barrier blocks, basically, I guess, where it's a mushroom island rather than the void. What's the story with that? Where part of it's mushroom island and parts of it's void is because you wanted the grass to look green at the very end when you win the map?
It's mainly because there's the advancement for monumental discovery, discovering the monument, and that gets triggered by going into a mushroom island biome, which is only on top of the monument.
Got it. Okay.
That's the story behind that.
Got it.
And now I, of course, didn't want the rain to
Right.
because players could do this. You know what that does. Right?
Eventually it fills up with water, and then once it's at the full level, you can get a water bucket. And it didn't occur to me, people pointed out in my comments as well, that once I have one water bucket, I can use 3 glass bottles and then fill another cauldron and then get another water bucket.
Well, wait, what?
If you have one water bucket, you can duplicate it into 2 using...
Wait, okay. Let me put it in. Oh, I need to go onto the side.
So then 3 glass bottles, and then...
Like, can you really? No, it takes it out, right?
Oh, no, but I put the water source in the ground, get 3 glass bottles, and then fill the cauldron with 3 glass bottles, I guess. I didn't actually try it, but someone said it in a comment. It seemed plausible. So can you use glass bottles to fill a cauldron? You need a block
so
below it, probably.
3,
okay.
and then can you put it in? No, you... Oh, you can. Oh.
So basically, with a cauldron and glass bottles, you can duplicate one water source into an infinite water source.
It's actually good to know. There are actually...
I don't know that it's good to know, because I have a feeling it's going to be changing in 1.13 anyway, so it's obsolete.
There are multiple sources of water in the map anyway. So
yes, I have also learned that from comments, although I haven't actually found it myself. I haven't played the map at all since I completed it on YouTube.
Okay.
Now
we go.
Yeah, alright, well, we got distracted over here by the rain.
Mm-hmm.
I was coming over here because there's like an X in the clouds in the sky somewhere right around here.
Yes, right here, if you follow me.
Ah, yes. So I never noticed this. I did look up at the clouds once or twice for kind of holes, but yeah, it didn't go any more than that. And then it's tall cactus here, okay.
Oh, I was generous with this.
Yeah. Iron block. There's lots of iron blocks actually in the map, it seems like.
Yeah, I tried to put the iron blocks mostly at like the town and later. I felt that was like a good point for them.
But yeah, this and the meteor over there by the monument that the treasure map leads to are kind of earlier iron blocks.
Oh yeah, and and the treasure map. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's another one of these. There's basically like a 3x3 hole right near the town, which is like underneath a tree. There's a bit of iron, and there is one right over there somewhere.
I see.
Also like a hole with something beneath a tree.
All right. Well, before we start, looking at any of those things, should we start progressing kind of in order around the map at this point? Or are there any other big picture things that you want to talk about?
We could go ahead and go around.
Okay,
the map
as we're flying back over to the beginning, kind of like the desert and canyon theme, apart from the fact that it allows you to kind of create the various hidden areas that you have throughout the map, like, was there any particular, I don't know, motivation or aesthetic that you had for inspiration at the beginning, or was it something you've always wanted to do, or...
This is one of those map ideas that I wanted to do for a long time. I have quite a few of those, actually. And the original idea was you have one big open world area. Let me get a different color, I guess. Let me get some colored sands. So you had one big open area, and the idea would be is that you would find... you would start in the middle, and you would just survive. And then the map would transform to a linear branching map with 4 intersections connected to the central area. But in intersection 1, you would get a key that opens the second intersection, and in the second one, you get a key to intersection 3 and so forth. And that was the original idea, where this canyon would be like the central area. But after the first 4 dungeons, I just basically centered around the whole central canyon. But the last 2 dungeons kind of were remnants of that key idea that I had with the vault.
I see. Okay.
So that's where that really came from.
I see. Yeah, it's interesting to see kind of like the history of how the ideas evolve. So yeah, at the very beginning, you come over here. I guess when you're starting... and you're looking at the death counter, like you could see over here, and I think it like wasn't until the second episode that it really occurred to me that, hey, that's probably the monument, the way that it's all lit up, and you can even see, if you're looking carefully, like some of the colored blocks from the monument thing. But did you have any people who you watched or had in testing or whatever who had any trouble finding the monument? I don't know.
Yep, that's some feedback I got from the first version. From the jam version, where it was like I thought that was just a difficult dungeon, because castles are most of the times pretty difficult,
right?
So people go to that really late, and then they see it's the monuments, and so they expect that to be just a late game area, but you should go kind of almost first to that. So I lit it up more, and the monument is now really visible as well.
I see.
That's also why the tower is kind of...
Yeah, so I was about to say, this tower was originally broken down like this. And I guess that's one of the things you said originally, there wasn't much, loot hidden around the monument. And now this broken tower, like, has the hay bales over here, for example.
I think that one was already there.
I see.
The hay bales are actually something that came mainly from Moldy as well. I really liked that about Sea of Cinders. But where there was quite a bit of loot, like hay bales and stuff, that wasn't like in a chest, because I could have given out bread in a chest.
Right.
I think this is more interesting as well, because it's kind of part of the world instead of opening another menu.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Kind of enjoyed it.
And yeah, like the shrubs, giving the sticks, and I feel like there was at least one other example of something like that, where it's resources that are more in the world, but it's not immediately coming to me. Yeah.
Probably is.
And in any case, you come across here, and there's a few different directions that you can go right from the start. Obviously, there's kind of an initial chest right over here that had some very basic supplies, and also kind of gives you a sense of the fact that there's going to be, I don't know, kind of this style of random loot chests throughout the map.
When you come off this island, because there's basically one way off.
Right.
Well, you can go 3 ways really, but those other 2 ways is bridging out, which most people wouldn't really do because it's quite a lot of effort. But when you come here, the first thing you would see is, of course, the redstone torch
Right.
chest, which it used to be over here.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually moved it to the side just so you could see the first dungeon. You could basically see from
I
here.
see, right. You
That as
have
well.
basically one giant lighting cube that's nearby to help steer the player.
Mm-hmm. And that big pillar on top wasn't there as well with the stone. And now that's there to get the attention as well. And on top of that, that big ruined saloon kind of
Mm-hmm.
building was more to the right at first as well. And it's all more to the left, just so people would go towards that
I
first
see.
dungeon.
That seemed to work really
But
well, because just about everybody I've watched play the map has gone in that direction very early on.
kid.
And it never occurred to me until I'm looking at this that this is the pub sign that's the same type of pub sign that was in dungeon number 5 that's just kind of been broken down where a lot of lettering is broken off.
Yes, I think this template has been used 3 times in total. Yeah, 3 times. Like all of these buildings, I think I used 3 times each.
I see. Interesting.
Except for some.
Yeah, I hadn't realized just how much kind of cut and paste similarity there was.
Yeah.
When you break them down different ways, it works well.
Oh yeah, when you reusing assets is okay, but it's kind of with you need to vary it up, of course, because there are like 6 or 7 different buildings, so it's not that you don't really notice it that well,
right?
Because they're in different settings as well.
Yes. So there's a few different directions to go, and one that I'm glad that I chose to go was over towards this pedestal. And you make these pedestals, I know. I'm actually, if I come right about this distance, the chest disappears, because chests only render from like 64 blocks away or something. And so when you want visible 64 loot chests from a good distance away, you need to add some other blocks. And so you have this pedestal with the light in order to attract attention. And
yeah,
go ahead.
That's something I learned from Free 2.
Right, yes, Final Fantasy is one of the first places that I remember him doing that. And I remember asking him about that afterwards, and he's like, yeah, so you can see it from far away.
Yeah, I really like that. Something like that.
Yeah.
And it makes it really obvious to see it as well, especially with bigger areas. That's kind of important to see where you're going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially for people who actually see things on the screen and find them that way. I tend to like stumble upon things when I'm right on top of them. But yeah, Advanced Infernizer. Knockback 2, Fire Aspect 1, Mending, Flint and Steel. This is definitely my favorite weapon I've ever had in the CTM map. I used it for like 95% of the map or more as kind of my main weapon, or the various upgrades that came with it. And
oh yeah,
go ahead.
I've been playing it with friends, and it's like, no, I want this one. No, I want it. So it's literally like, who gets it?
Right. And I don't know. I don't think you can like naturally put knockback on a Flint and Steel like in survival mode.
Yeah.
But I think I'm gonna add that as like a random loot chest item in my next exploration and tactics series, because it's just too much fun.
Just using creepers as bombs, basically.
Yes.
Basically like a small TNT cannon.
Yep. And yeah, we talked about this idea because you had this idea a while ago, but I think you were originally thinking about like having a stack of creeper eggs where the creeper eggs had knockback 2 on them or something, and like when they summoned, like they already had their fuse going off or something like that. Was an earlier iteration of the idea, perhaps?
Yeah, at first the idea was actually just to give out like the Infinizer again that I used in Myriad and in Goliath
right,
as
the
well.
blaze rod with fire aspect. And
yeah, and it has the same same like progression in what it does in terms of attacking. But the idea was mainly that because it has mending, you could basically like trail a lot of fire as well.
Which is really good when you're starved of torches and materials at the early game.
And then the after effect of me thinking like, oh, actually it's really fun to actually use it on creepers as well. So I quickly became in love with it as well while implementing it.
Yeah, I did experiment a tiny bit with it in terms of like lighting fires in order to set monsters on fire. And I occasionally used it as like temporary light when I was fighting off monsters and needed to light up a spawner temporarily before I had a chance to
It's
break
really
it.
good. It's really good for spawners. If you could just run towards your spawn, because you don't need to switch
Right.
from weapon. It's just hit mobs, place down, keep mobs at bay with the knockback, and if you have a golden pickaxe, break the spawner quickly, and then keep killing the mobs.
Yep. The only trouble that I occasionally had with it is when you're also wielding your shield, like if you're trying to block, but your cursor's on a block, you'll end up lighting the block on fire rather than blocking.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it. I like that it's basically like the drawback of the weapon, but I don't like it too much because, of course, that's kind of the clunky way of Minecraft being clunky. Because that could be really frustrating at times.
Right. Yeah, I'm happy to call that blame Mojang, and yeah, I don't mind it as a trade-off because the weapon is really good, and so if it has minor drawbacks, that's fine. But yeah, the previous Infernizers, like in your previous maps, I think War and Baby Kit had some fun with them. I really didn't enjoy them at all, and so this was the first time it's like, Render gave me a super weapon, and I used it.
I kind of like those like knockback fire spec weapons, just because when you have like so many mobs coming for you, it's just so fun to, as they are all coming for you, about to blow up.
You get all the damage over time constantly as they're slowly trickling back.
I really like crowd control weapons.
Right.
Basically.
And they're also really good from the point of view of, I think in general, players like kind of momentum and movement and being able to move quickly through an area. And so that's a way, basically you give any knockback to a weapon and it's a way for the player to basically kind of have permission to kind of go full speed through an area even if there's a number of mobs.
Mm-hmm.